Hello, I'm Dorota Chudzicka, Assistant Curator of Modern European Art at the Detroit Institute of Arts. Today, it is my pleasure to invite you to look with me at the painting in the DIA's collection by the great modern master, the French painter Paul Cézanne. It is this wonderfully intriguing but also challenging portrait of the artist's wife, Madame Cézanne. It is ambitiously scaled work, which was completed in about 1887 and is a staple of our post-impressionist galleries and an important part of our story of the development of modern European art. Paul Cézanne, a recluse who distanced himself even from his friends and fellow artists, painted only about 160 portraits in over 4 decades of his professional life, during which he completed nearly 1,000 paintings. So portraits are a small fraction of his body of work. These are mostly portraits of his family, friends, and people he knew well, and who could endure posing for the artist. It was a famously difficult process which took numerous sittings and required absolute stillness from the subject for many, many hours. Until recently, Cézanne's portraits had remained relatively unexplored and overall did not command attention equal to the artist's still lifes, the famous paintings of apples in particular. His landscapes showing the area near the town of Aix-en-Provence in the south of France, where he lived, or his paintings of bathers. And examples of these subjects are in the DIA's collection. The insightful and beautiful exhibition Cézanne Portraits, organized by Musée d'Orsay in Paris, the National Portrait Gallery in London, and the National Gallery of Art in Washington in 2017-2018, for the first time considered Cézanne's portrait as a group and works in which the artist undertook experimentation. Painting from nature or in front of a model was essential for Cézanne. In this aspect, he was a traditionalist. His novel approach to painting had to do rather with translating into paint his perceptions of the world, what he called his sensations, through form and color constructed on the canvas according to, as he put it himself, a new and original logic. The painting Madame Cézanne shows us what happens when Cézanne applies this new logic to an image of a person and a person close to him. Between 1877 and 1894, Cézanne produced about 28 portraits of his wife, Hortense. She was his most frequent model. But it was not only the convenience that Hortense provided, presumably being often available as a model, but as has been noted by art historian Susan Sidlauskas, the constancy that Hortense supplied was essential to Cézanne's work. Cézanne met Marie Hortense Fiquet in Paris in 1869 when he was 30 and Hortense was about 19. She was not a Parisian. She came from humble origins. Her father was a farmer and her maternal grandfather was a blacksmith. Before meeting Cézanne, Hortense reportedly worked as a seamstress and possibly at a bookbinder, sewing handmade books. She also had done some modeling, posing in artist's studio, and this is most likely how she met Cézanne. The relationship was complicated, first kept as a secret from the artist's banker father, although it was revealed to his mother, his sister, and his friends. And even after formally legitimizing the union, when their son Paul was 14 years old, Cézanne and his wife did not form a conventional household, and for most part, they lived separately. Cézanne's family did not like Hortense. They called her disapprovingly La Reine Hortense, the Queen Hortense, thinking her vulgar and a gold digger. Cézanne's friends in the literary and artistic circles were likewise hostile toward her and gave her a derogatory nickname, La Boule, the ball or the dumpling, alluding to what was seen as her lack of beauty or lack of charm and possibly excessive plumpness. Not much is available about Hortense in terms of historic records. Only 2 letters in her hand had survived. Both reveal her intelligence and her measured demeanor. And nonetheless, for a long time, Cézanne's literature echoed this harsh attitude to her of her contemporaries, and art historians were at best dismissive of her role in Cézanne's life and art. Cézanne did not date any of his portraits, but the current consensus is that DIA's Madame Cézanne was painted between 1886 and 1887, at the time when Hortense's status changed from a mistress and common law wife to an official spouse. Well, this fact would be difficult to surmise from the DIA's painting. Even a quick and cursory comparison of the DIA's portrait with other portraits of Hortense show that none of them are preoccupied with capturing the complete likeness of the sitter. Clearly, that was not Cézanne's aim. Hortense is always recognizable, but at the same time, she looks different in all of her portraits. In fact, in the DIA's painting, Hortense's features are significantly altered by a hooked nose, tightly pursed lips, and receding chin. Her hair, austerely pulled up and parted in the center, follows closely the rounded outline of her head, framing a narrow forehead. Although in other portraits, her head has a distinctly oval shape and prominent forehead. The history of European portraiture encountered a turning point in the 19th century. One of the factors was the invention of photography in the late 1830s. And by the end of the 19th century, Cézanne was no longer interested in either idealized or realistic physiognomy of a portrait model, as for instance depicted in these portraits from the DIA's collection. And the artist Cézanne abandoned striving to capture the individuality of the face with its expressive specificity. The truncated sleeves of the loose blue sack dress that Hortense wears cover her disproportionately shortened arms. The impression that her body is strangely contracted is amplified by her surroundings. This towering mass of the thick drapery behind her on the left, with a teardrop motif wallpaper to the right. Philosopher Maurice Merleau-Ponty, who wrote about Cézanne, remarked that Cézanne's people are strange, as if viewed by a creature of another species. And this seems about right, and leave us with a reversed question. Whom we are looking at when we look at Cézanne's portrait of Hortense? Does Hortense herself figure in the painting in any significant way? It has been often said that she was treated by Cézanne as an object, a mere motif in his work. Yet the painting does convey an emotional effect, some kind of psychological tension that indicates both intimacy and distance between the artist and the sitter. And to borrow the words of the curator of the Cézanne Portraits exhibition, John Elderfield, we feel no clear line between the painter's control and the sitter's self-representation. Well, it may have been Madame Cézanne who chose the unflattering hairdo for this sitting and assumed a discontent and sullen expression, refusing, in a way, to conform to our expectations. So this is not a conventional female portrait, that much is clear, but it does captivate us. This is a portrait for our modern age. Thank you for joining me today in looking at Madame Cézanne. Please come visit the DIA when our museum opens to encounter Madame Cézanne in person. In the meantime, stay safe and be well. Thank you.